I've had the pleasure and the honor of speaking with, at this point, hundreds of different successful people in different areas, at different walks of life, doing different things. And there's one thing that so many of them still continue to struggle with, and it's something that they struggle with when they started their business or their company or their sport or whatever it is. And it's something that they continue to struggle with in a lot of cases. It's something that I struggle with. It's something that I know that you probably also struggle with. And it's called self-doubt. Now, I want to share something with you that I heard at a sort of like a business conference that we go to every quarter, myself and the other executives in my company. I'm a COO, and I also went with our CMO and our CEO. And this was actually, it was our coach, our business coach, who was holding this event. And we got to hear from his coach. And this is a man who's coached. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people this guy has helped. So this is something I wanted to tell you that he shared with us about self-doubt. And it was honestly so transformative for me. And so I really do believe this is not going to be like something that you're going to hear elsewhere. So I highly encourage that you listen until the end if you're someone who struggles with self-doubt. And that's about anything. That's in your relationships. That's in your own ventures. That's just when you look in the mirror. Anything, okay? So what is self-doubt? Well, self-doubt is effectively when we have these beliefs about our own abilities going forward into the future or in the present, and we basically draw this conclusion that what we are able to do does not live up to either other people's expectations or what the call of duty seems to demand of us. Now, this can be absolutely crippling because if you're someone also who has a lot of ambition in their life, then it's a really, really, really difficult combination because let's think about this. You want to get a lot done. You have this vision of what you might be able to provide your loved ones, provide yourself, and provide your children and create a legacy, whatever, right? Or just leave memories in people's mind of things that you were able to do and things you were able to show them that they are able to do through the fact that you were able to do them, let's say. Now, that is so awesome. Honestly, that is so awesome that you have those feelings and those thoughts, but when they're combined with self-doubt, it's worse than if you just had self-doubt by itself. And that's because one side of you, this higher side of you, reaches and wants more. But this other side of you thinks that you're not the person to achieve it, despite the image you might have in your head of, you might do manifestation or affirmations or whatever, right? Visualization, whatever. You might do any of these things. Or you might just think to yourself, wow, it'd be really cool to be this kind of a person that leaves this kind of an impact while I have this limited time on this planet. But it's so difficult when, again, you have self-doubt because you have this call of duty in your mind of what you want to become, what you think you should become, what you feel you must become, right? But then you have this self-doubt, which is, okay, well, I can't get there. I'm not quite good enough. I'm not where I need to be. And sometimes this is so crippling, you don't even start, right? But here is what my coach's coach shared with us, is that really here is what self-doubt is. Self-doubt is essentially a collection of tacit judgments. And by the way, I'm going to define all of this in layman's terms afterwards, if it's complicated. Self-doubt is a combination of tacit judgments we made about ourselves, probably through the ages of between 0 and about 11 years old, about the world, that then manifest in the way that we passively perceive our environment and our own abilities. So, I'll give you an example that he shared with us. Right? So he said when he was about 3 years old, he had a sister. Okay, his parents gave birth, or his mother gave birth to a little girl. And in his own journey, he realized that when that happened, as happy as he was to, I guess, have a friend, he also believed, because he was the firstborn, right? His judgment of that moment, his passive tacit judgment of that moment was, I'm replaceable. Okay? So he, for a few years, his first couple years of his life, he was a king because his parents, everything they did was for his sake. But now they're having another kid. And so as he got older and older and older, he didn't really realize that in every relationship he entered into, he always felt like he would never amount to enough. And that eventually whoever he was with, it could be friends, it could be a girlfriend, it could be a wife, it could be whatever, they would eventually get sick of him and they'd find a new one. Now, why did he feel that way? He wasn't ever explicitly abandoned. Both his parents were together, right? He never had experienced any sort of like trauma of missing anyone that was really important to him in his life. So why is it that he always felt that, he'd eventually be left, even though he had no experience of that? And it was because, he went back and back and back, and he really did a lot of cognitive work. And he realized that so much of this pain, whenever he entered into a new relationship with anybody, was that so much of this pain came from the fact that he had a sister, which is so strange, okay? That his self-doubt, this man who is successful in all definitions of the term, right? Why is it that he feels that he'll always be replaced? Well, because he had a sister. So again, let's go back to this definition of what self-doubt is, right? Self-doubt is these passive acceptances of things that happen in your environment that, again, typically it's between the ages of 1 and 11, 1 and 12, right? Where our prefrontal cortex is really developing at a super fast rate, okay? And we are doing so many things in our world to determine how we can interact with our surroundings. And it allows us to make judgments about the world. It allows us to make judgments about people in the world, and especially ourselves and our abilities. Now, for you might have several self-doubts about this or that, and you might not know where they come from. And the thing is, it might not come from somewhere that you think is a super logical place, right? It's so easy to say, oh, well, this parent's, father passed away when they were young. Oh, they must have daddy issues. This person's mother passed away. They must have mommy issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? There's all these different examples that we want to make it so black and white of what's happened. And so here's why we are the way we are, is because this very comparable thing happened when we were younger. Well, it's not always so obviously comparable. And so if we think about it, there's so many things that happen when we're children. So many things, especially to us, right? The world, we perceive the world totally differently than we do when we're a little bit more older. We're a little older and we're a little bit more rational. And so when we consider our self-doubts that hold us back from our, let's say, adult dreams, right? Our really mature, thought out dreams and desires. A lot of times it's little acceptances and it's little things, passive, tacit approvals and acknowledgments of things that might not seem to have any connection. Like for example, you might have a sister, right? It's these things that then lead to these massive self-doubts. One other example was, there was someone who, he was saying that there was one of his clients actually, who when she was younger, she lived in this massive house. Like it was a mansion and it just, had tons of nice things in it. And then her parents split up and I guess she went with her mother. And her mother didn't have that kind of financial standing. And so they ended up moving into a house that was right above a store. Okay, so they couldn't afford very much. And so the place that they ended up living, I think she lived there with her mother and her 2 younger brothers. This was above some sort of like corner store. Now, because the corner store was doing business all day, they had to be quiet upstairs. And so now, even though she has, when you get to know her, she's an incredibly vibrant personality, right? She's actually quite extroverted. But the thing is that she always feels as though she needs to minimize her existence. She needs to minimize the fact that she's there. She needs to be very quiet. All of her responses are very non-verbal, right? So as opposed to saying, yes, I like that, she might just nod her head or give a thumbs up or something like that. And again, she didn't really realize this when she was older until she went back and really thought, okay, well, here's what must have caused it. Okay? Now, you might ask yourself, if you're following along, you might ask yourself, okay, I have these self-doubts. Let's suppose they came from the ages of 0 to 12, where I just tacitly accepted random things, that my 12-year-old brain or less accepted as fact. Okay, how do I go back and undo these things that today make me doubt my abilities such that I can't pursue the mature adult goals that I really have? Okay, well, this does take time and it does take work. Right? And the main purpose of this video was really just to uncover where self-doubts come from, because even the acknowledgement of that truth has so much power. But we'll move on a little bit to how we might understand where this trauma actually lies. Like, how is it that this coach was able to say, oh, it's because I was 3 or 4 years old, I had a sister, and I assumed I guess I just accepted that I was replaceable. Like, that's what I got from that situation, even though that wasn't at all the case, right? How do you go back? Okay, so it's actually quite simple. So let's consider you have really bad stage fright, okay? Which a lot of people do. I think like 80%, something insane, right? People have stage fright. They have a hard time talking to a big group of people. Well, did you have that when you were 5 years old? Probably not, right? You were able to probably go into first grade. Maybe you were a little shy for a minute. And then if you look at any kindergarten class, right? Kids are just running around having fun. They are so extroverted. For the most part, it's pretty hard to see an introverted kindergartner, a well-adapted introverted kindergartner. It's pretty rare, right? They do happen, of course, but if you look at the average kindergarten class, it's chaos, okay? In a good way. Okay, so now did you have it at 12? Did you have that fear of speaking to a group of people at 12? Let's say no. Okay, but at 17, did you? Okay, let's say you did. Let's say you remember at 17, yeah. At that point, there was one or two instances where you're like, I don't want to talk to people. I'm really scared of speaking in front of a crowd. Or even if it's a couple people, a group, right? So then we look at the ages of between, let's say, 12 and 17. What may have happened there? What may have happened? Okay, maybe it was that you did speak in front of a classroom, right? Everyone had a class project and you had to get up in front of the class and you said something and you made a mistake and everybody laughed at you, right? And it might have just been a quick moment, or even maybe just one person that you look up to laughed at you. Could be anything. The teacher maybe had a quick laugh because maybe they thought it was cute or something like that, right? But you interpreted that as, again, oh, even though I was speaking seriously, I'm funny, which means that they must be laughing at me because I wasn't intending to be funny, so they're not laughing with me. They must be laughing at me. I must not be good at speaking in front of people, right? It can be that simple. And these things can lead to self-doubts. And so I encourage you to do the work to think, okay, if there's a particular trait or particular thing in you that's holding you back from a particular goal, you have a doubt about, can I do this? Am I really going to be okay? Am I really going to succeed? Are people going to laugh at me? All these things. It's worth doing the work to consider, okay, well, what tacit acceptance, what tacit approval did I give to some event that may not even be connected to what I think it's connected to? The fact that your teacher laughed might be, again, because who knows? It might be because you said something that was really adorable or whatever. Or they may have laughed because they were like, wow, this 14-year-old kid knows a lot for a 14-year-old kid. Like, this is crazy, right? Like, ha ha ha, this is insane. They might just laugh to themselves thinking, wow, this is really good. Who knows? Like, who knows? Right? And so go back and be like, what trait is being silenced? What trait of mine is being silenced because I have a self-doubt? Right? Because you do have that trait within you. But that self-doubt is covering up what you might be able to offer the world and might be able to offer your projects such that those projects can grow and come to fruition as you intend them to. So, this was a discussion about self-doubts, and we found out that self-doubts come from this tacit approval of things that probably have no connection to anything that we actually want to achieve, and yet they still hold us back. And just by understanding that this is where the majority of self-doubts come from, in these formative years of about 0 to 11, 0 to 12, somewhere in there, as our prefrontal cortex is developing at an unprecedented rate, we make these tacit judgments of things, and sometimes we don't even know, right? The same way as this coach's, he didn't even really think. He didn't think in the moment, right? This is another thing. As I'm wrapping up, the other thing that you need to keep in mind. In that moment, it's not like he knew. Oh, my sister is here. I now have a younger sibling. Therefore, I am replaceable, right? He's not making these sort of logical jumps. By the way, it's not even logical, but he's not making these like quasi-logical jumps. His brain is just accepting things, accepting stimuli from his environment and assigning meaning to it as his brain is developing, right? So most of the time, it's probably going to misfire. As we do as adults too, by the way. So I hope this gives you some insight if you're someone with self-doubts. If you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, any requests, please leave them in the comments section, and I look forward to hearing anything you have to say, and I look forward to speaking with you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Spencer with Must Become. Always remember that your potential is your obligation, and so what you can become, you must become.